Natural beauty, something that appears unadulterated or untouched by man-made advances. On TikTok, there was once a trend where someone would try to identify as either natural pretty or popular pretty. The two are notably different, but what contributes to the natural beauty look? Well, in this video, we'll take a look at what gives a face an appearance that is effortless yet raw and attractive. The first point of contention are the eyebrows, and the eyebrows can actually change a lot about a face, which most people don't really realize until we show them before and afters. But here, what type of brow creates a more seamlessly natural appearance? We can easily see that someone like Cara Delevingne has very striking brows. Not only are they quite dark, they seem perfectly shaped and molded. This doesn't give her a natural look per se, but rather gives her a more bold, curated beauty. You can even look at the Kardashians and see how perfectly molded their brows appear, and they are known for having a more altered, curated appearance. In contrast, Jennifer Connelly has dark brows as well, but her brows aren't as perfectly molded to fit a certain shape. She kept their natural bushy, almost unruly and natural flair with their own set of minor asymmetries. Keeping your own natural brow shape will allow for a more effortless type of beauty, assuming they're within some level of reasonable proportion. Eyebrows that contribute to the natural beauty effect are often more asymmetrical. The asymmetry makes it seem as though little to not much work has been put into the appearance, even though you and I both know there has been a level of work that still goes into maintaining aesthetic looking eyebrows. If you want the effortless brow look, you can easily use your own natural brow shape and just use an eyebrow tinting kit to darken the brows while also going to a brow specialist to add some minor corrections. This will create a natural brow shape while still using the higher contrast or a striking effect depending on your skin tone. Now, although there is a buccal fat removal trend that creates a certain augmented look, let's say, a leaner face can allow for a more natural contour that won't need to be recreated using makeup. Naturally, lean faces don't require as much makeup as puffier ones because the built-in shading is already there, as the bone structure creates contours of valleys and peaks amongst the surrounding tissue. If one already has a nice amount of facial hollowing, they may accentuate it using a bit of contour, whereas someone with more facial fat would have to rely on heavier contouring and lighting for a sculpted appearance, and the makeup never really compares to the real thing. Now, bone structure also goes hand in hand with facial leanness. Certain bone structures can have facial hollowing, while some cannot achieve that look no matter how lean they get, simply because their facial features are not prominent enough. The underlying bone structure does matter. If you want to learn more about why certain faces can never have facial hollowing, lean cheeks, a really sharp sculpted appearance, you can check out this video with The Truth About Sharp Cheekbones, where we break down cheekbone anatomy from a physical perspective. But for now, bone structures with prominent high-set cheekbones combined with a well-developed jaw can have this certain look with virtually no makeup, and that contributes to the effortlessly beautiful face because it contributes to the beauty standard but also doesn't require extra augmentation. Again, when you have naturally strong, robust facial development, you really won't need to opt for heavy makeup, which in turn creates the natural beauty effect. When it comes to proportions, having ones that are more clinically ideal contributes to the natural beauty effect. If you have more quote-unquote ideal proportions, say in relation to your racial group, your ethnic group, even your biological sex, you won't have to find ways to distract from other ones. For example, using a liner to accentuate the fullness of a thin upper lip because you already have a decently voluminous lip. In South Korean beauty culture, the under eyelid fat is often called aegyeosal, and this can create an illusion of a smaller, more compacted face shape as the overall eyes look larger and more youthful, which is in line with their beauty standard. Along the same line as the lips, if an individual has a longer philtrum, they could easily use lip liner to make the philtrum appear shorter by overlining the lips, but of course, one with a shorter philtrum wouldn't need to overline like that because they already have the preferred feature. In that sense, the lack of reliance on makeup would be contributing to the natural beauty effect. Proportions are the main part of the natural effect because according to research by Dr. Langlois and Dr. Rogman, attractive faces are only average. Both male and female composites were judged as more attractive than almost all of the individual faces comprising the composites. This obviously doesn't mean that very attractive people are average in the sense that most people would understand the word. It means that their facial proportions would not lie on any numerical extremes on the bell curve of proportions, and rather they stay within the averaged range. The Greeks coined this term koinophilia. Anything truly natural isn't necessarily perfect. Look at natural woods, natural marbles, they all have their own imperfections, yet we pay top dollar for them. We all have some blemishes on our faces, and this is especially important when we're talking about skin. You will notice that in Eastern beauty cultures, a lot of celebrities have extremely smooth skin, pretty much to the point where it seems impossible to achieve. But this level of skin smoothness has been criticized for not appearing quote-unquote natural. Interestingly enough, there were certain makeup trends in Japan that attempted to appear more natural by leaving the skin with small marks or deliberate imperfections like acne scarring or moles being artificially added back in places they considered more aesthetic. You can see that someone like Ho Yeon-jung, who has garnered attention by Western standards and Western audiences, doesn't have that certain smoothened skin you see in traditional K-pop idols. She has her little blemishes like everyone else, and this contributes to her appeal as being a natural icon. Freckles can also contribute to this natural beauty look despite your skin color, and well, natural ones of course are considered quite attractive within reason. Basically showing the quirks of your skin such as melanocytes, moles, even solar lesions can within reason help one achieve a more natural beauty look because it is ultimately what your skin realistically looks like with minimal makeup. You can opt for a lighter coverage foundation if you want to achieve a more homogeneous undertone, but ultimately natural look relates back to a lack of makeup. The lips actually do matter a fair bit when it comes to the natural beauty look because the lips act as a sort of shibboleth from when we transition from natural beauty to more done up looks. The idea being that since the lips provide a point of high contrast, basically with lipsticks trying to emulate the redness of the lips, having more pale natural lip tones is indicative of a lower usage of makeup. Even if that's not true, we consider the lips, just as a layperson, to be the indicator of when the look is more done up, or if there is a lack of lip tones that are aggressive or very high contrast, the face is considered to be less done up. Just a very big simplification, but hopefully you get the point there. The idea being it doesn't really have much to do with the fullness of the lips, but rather the keyhole power, a trait that's found in certain lips where there will be a little keyhole, and many do get their lips surgically augmented and altered to get this trait, but this trait itself will contribute to a more dramatic, sensual beauty, moving away from the natural ideals. A face with a more natural look tends to have a wider and less voluminous lip shape. In old Hollywood, there were a lot more stars with less plastic surgery compared to the average Hollywood star today. But if that is the case, why do most of them still have this glamorous look and not the natural beauty look? Well, for one, they had more high arched brows that contributed to that glamour. Prominent brow arches can give a face more flair, making it look more like the diva of the time. They also had more facial fat and less prominent bone structure, including the jaws, compared to models or actors today. And of course, with the exception of, say, Sharon Tate, Brigitte Bardot, and Audrey Hepburn, we still see that continue. Overall, you will notice the brows and bone structures notably change the beauty type. All the way back in the Hollywood days, the use of makeup was more overt. You may see many no makeup tutorials on YouTube. The look of being more natural relies on more genetically gifted proportions, bone structures, and features rather than the reliance on makeup. The reason this quote-unquote natural beauty look is so appealing is because overt use of makeup unfortunately does have negative connotations. One proposed reason for this is because makeup essentially acts as a dishonest indicator of genetic fitness. What does that mean, you may ask? Well, in social biology, we consider certain features to be honest indicators of your genetic fitness. For example, not having acne is an indicator to everyone around you that you are free of that skin disease. That one should be pretty obvious. Having misshapen eyes, having tumors, asymmetries, malformations is indication of poor facial development. So again, it's an honest indicator because you can't really hide, say, a missing jaw or a very asymmetric face with makeup. But makeup, on the other hand, can mimic some smaller indicators of your fitness, such as blush or rouge, adding redness to the cheeks, which is indicative of typically healthy men and women. Or, for example, using brow pens to darken the brows, which is again synonymous with youthfulness because our brows do lose their color as we get older. So that could be why heavy makeup is considered sort of cheating the system, although the usage of makeup is ultimately up to the person. Some people do it just because it makes them feel more confident. Others may do it because they understand it can give them a social boost as well. Both reasons are completely valid. While there is absolutely nothing wrong with using makeups to feel comfortable with yourself, you should be wary of ill usage or over dramatic styles in your day-to-day life if you're trying to look for the benefits of the natural look. And what are these benefits? Well, typically there is also a classist element to the aesthetic archetype that you take for yourself. For example, typically richer, more affluent people go for the more natural look. And the reason for this is quite simple: maintaining perfect skin, perfect hair, perfect facial features, such as eating healthy, is not cheap in any way. So you don't need to use makeup to emulate those things. Again, this idea of the dishonest genetic indicator, because ultimately those that can afford it don't need to emulate it. There are many different eye shapes, but certain ones don't have the natural beauty effect because not all eye shapes are made equal. For instance, vertically narrow, sharper eyes will be more model-esque or fierce, and perhaps more intimidating, but certainly not contributing to the natural look because most women naturally don't have those eyes. Those are more masculinized eyes that we see more commonly on men. Slightly more rounded eyes with a wider eye opening, also called the palpebral height, are more fresh-faced, which in turn creates the natural beauty look, because this is more common or typical of what we would expect to see. Too rounded or large eyes won't give this effect because again, they stray into the other end of the spectrum where the eyes are hyperfeminized. And again, this is an effect that's perhaps commonly done with makeup, but also rare to see on a naturally fresh face. The natural beauty look doesn't lean too heavily on either end. It embraces the natural eye shape that most people, women particularly, have in this context, regardless without makeup. It will be more neutral and not overtly aggressive or docile, such as the doll look from the extremely rounded eyes. It may slide a bit more on either spectrum, depending on the archetype of your face, but normally it doesn't lie on either extreme, and that's the main takeaway here. With the natural beauty effect, the eyes won't be so overly wide set because that would opt for a more otherworldly effect, which is again a different aesthetic. Fantasy characters like fairies are often depicted with very wide set eyes, which isn't really the natural look we're aiming for because again, the name of the game is staying within facial averages. More normal to slightly wide set eyes would offer the natural beauty look, and there is research that shows having slightly wider eyes than you'd expect is actually quite a desirable look, especially in the modeling industry. In helping explain the natural beauty look, we should also try to explain why some people look otherworldly or ethereal. The word ethereal means extremely delicate and light in a way that seems too perfect for this world. Basically, ethereal looks describes something that doesn't seem real and is captured by perhaps some distinctly non-average facial proportions and features. One example that comes to mind for me personally is Sunaina, an artist that we covered on this channel with an extremely unusual nose bridge that definitely adds some uniqueness to the face. Ethereal faces will also have high levels of neonate features that are found in infants, typically adding to the uncanniness of the effect. And according to Sexual Selection, Physical Attractiveness and Facial Neoteny by Doug Jones, juvenile mammals present a characteristic cute appearance with relatively large eyes, high foreheads, and reduced snouts. When you have a combination of all of these traits together as an adult, you will end up with more of an otherworldly appearance as opposed to one with a natural beauty look, because this is again not typical of most women in this context or men in this context because most people grow out of their young features. High amounts of facial fat are also found in babies and children, so having more of that might also contribute to the ethereal type rather than the natural or the more model-esque looks which prefer facial robusticity or sharpness and angularity. I stated before, natural facial contour will also add to the beauty effect. So what type of facial archetype is best? There are so many different ways to be attractive, and the natural beauty look is only one of them that is contextually quite modern. Only with the advent and popularization of surgery within the last 200 years for cosmetic purposes do we have to make the distinction between natural beauty and, I don't know, done up beauty, popular pretty, whatever terms the kids are using these days. And so it actually makes a significant distinction when we talk about natural beauty and why it's important, because it's tied in this classist route where typically, again, richer people tend to opt for the natural look as opposed to the done up glamorous look, simply because it is a status symbol to have perfectly clear skin without having to use makeup, to have nice hair, done up nails, so on and so forth. The natural beauty look is created by a few different factors as we've covered with the examples, and not one type of beauty or archetype is superior to the others, because then you're comparing apples to oranges. If you're interested in recreating the effect yourself, you can try to follow the tips mentioned in this video, but this is more of a discussion for makeup channels because ultimately there is still a level of makeup, just very light foundation that goes into achieving the look without looking overdone. But there's also elements of facial features that are more averaged or coinophilic for the population rather than those that are more model-esque or perhaps docile or perhaps ethereal or otherworldly by being on completely different end of the spectrum. Realistically, the natural beauty look isn't something that's achievable for everyone. Think about it. There's only so much you can change about your facial proportions, your genetics, your facial robusticity or development. And so the idea comes down to not relying on surgery, where if you did use surgery to change these things, then it really wouldn't be natural beauty anymore. But that being said, on the other end of the spectrum, more people can achieve this look than they thought, because a lot of people do have those features naturally. The idea of natural beauty goes down to just looking like your normal self with a slight bit of enhancement, nothing over the top. So maybe you can pull that look off. It just depends on your specific face. If you want to learn more about your face, just like we've covered here in a lot of depth from our team of doctors and dentists, then have I got the perfect solution for you. head over to the Koov's website to order a facial aesthetics report and have our team take a look and tell you more about your face, your facial aesthetic, your facial archetype, proportions, symmetries, and all the other factors that makes a face attractive, because we've been doing this for a very long time. As always, I'll catch you all in the next one.